Hey guys, tonight we slip into the impossibly stiff sandals of an Edo-period samurai. Right now, it's not even foreign, and your world is devoid of ink-black stillness, the kind of deep night where even the crickets have given up. You're buried under a thin futon, maybe dreaming of warm sake or a quiet garden, when thump 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 shatters the silence. It's not a gentle tap. It's the insistent, rhythmic pounding of a servant's fist on your shoshi screen door, your pre-dawn wake-up call. No snooze button exists here, only the bone-deep knowledge that failure to rise is failure in duty. You fumble blindly in the profound dark, every muscle screaming for just 5 more minutes in the relative warmth. Forget your cozy duvet and central heating. This room is chilled by the night air seeping through paper walls. You'd trade your best katana for a double espresso right now, but caffeine won't touch these shores for centuries. This brutal reveille wasn't just early. It was non-negotiable, rooted in the practical need to maximize daylight for training, and the philosophical belief that mastering the body began with conquering comfort. Historians still argue whether this punishing schedule was universally enforced across all samurai ranks, or primarily for elite retainers and castle residents. One quirky detail: many samurai employed naiben, night watchers, whose sole job was to patrol estates and wake sleeping warriors at the precise ungodly hour, often using a wooden clapper or simply their knuckles. Imagine being that guy, creeping through dark corridors, knowing you're about to ruin dozens of deep sleeps. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you listening from tonight? Drop a comment with your location and local time. It's always fascinating to see where this quiet community gathers. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The knocking doesn't stop. It's relentless, a metronome of obligation. Groaning, you push off the thin futon. The cold air hits your skin like a physical slap. There are no cozy slippers waiting. Your feet find the icy smoothness of the tatami mat, sending a jolt up your spine. You shuffle forward, guided more by memory than sight, arms outstretched to avoid colliding with a low table or a stand holding your armor. The darkness is absolute, thick enough to taste. Your sleep-addled brain struggles to orient itself. Was that the door to the corridor? Or the alcove? A faint sliver of gray might be the edge of a window screen, but it offers no real light. You fumble for the shoshi screen, your fingers finding the wooden frame, sliding it open with a dry rasp. A figure stands silhouetted in the marginally less dark hallway, the neben. No words are exchanged. His presence is the message. He bows slightly. You manage a grunt that might pass for acknowledgement. He melts back into the gloom, his duty done, leaving you standing there, shivering in your underrobe, utterly alone in the vast, silent house. The immediate urge is to crawl back to the futon's pathetic warmth, but discipline, hammered into you since childhood, is a cage stronger than iron. Bushido starts here, in this moment of weakness, before the sun even contemplates rising. You turn away from the beckoning futon. Your next destination isn't the kitchen for a comforting snack, or even the latrine. It's a small, austere alcove where your simple wooden wash basin and a ceramic jug of water sit. This isn't about hygiene yet. This is about shock, about dominance. You lift the heavy jug. The water inside, drawn the evening before, has spent the night losing every trace of warmth, its mountain stream cold. You pour it slowly over your hands first, gasping as the icy bite shoots up your arms. Then, bracing yourself, you splash it onto your face. It's like being punched. Your breath hitches, your eyes fly open wide, stinging in the dark. Any lingering fog of sleep is obliterated, replaced by a brutal, gasping clarity. This ritual, chozu, wasn't just about waking up. It was a symbolic purification, a physical declaration of readiness to face the day's austerities, a reminder that comfort was the enemy of the warrior spirit. It stripped away the softness, leaving only raw awareness. As the cold water drips from your chin onto the floor, you're undeniably, painfully awake. The true weight of a samurai's mourning, layer upon layer of ritual, discipline, and discomfort, is just beginning to settle on your shoulders. You take a deep, shuddering breath of the cold air. The darkness hasn't lifted, but the night within you is over. Time to move. That face splash was just the amuse-bouche of discomfort. Now, shivering in your damp underrobe, you stumble toward the bathing area, a stark, unheated space smelling of wet stone and pine resin. No steamy oasis awaits. Instead, you face a sunken wooden tub, ophoro, filled with water so cold it might as well be liquid starlight. Dawn hasn't broken. The world outside is still a bruise of indigo. You shed the robe, the air biting your skin like invisible insects. This isn't a bath, it's a weapon. The mainstream historical fact: full-body Mizagi was core to samurai discipline, believed to forge unbreakable spirit and physical resilience, Shinto tradition meeting boot camp brutality. Historians still argue whether this was a daily grind for all or reserved for specific training periods, but one thing's clear: your teeth are already chattering like castanets. You grip the tub's edge, knuckles white. No deep breaths help. With a grimace that's half determination, half regret for every life choice leading here, you step in. The shock is volcanic. It's not water. It's 10,000 needles stabbing every pore simultaneously. You gasp, but the air feels thick, useless. Your lungs seize. Instinct screams to leap out, but discipline is a cage of ice around that impulse. You lower yourself further, the water climbing your thighs, waist, chest, a slow, excruciating conquest. Your heartbeat thunders in your ears, a frantic drum solo against the silence. This is where samurai separated will from flesh. A quirky tidbit: some hardcore practitioners skip the tub entirely, standing under frozen waterfalls or rolling naked in fresh snow. Imagine explaining that to your confused neighbor over the fence. Just building character, Tanaka-san. You sink deeper, shoulders submerged now. The cold isn't just on your skin, it's in your bones, your marrow, your thoughts. Rationality whispers, this is stupid. Warmth exists. Bushido roars back, weakness is death. You focus on the faint, pearly light finally seeping through a high window dawn's first mercy. It paints the steamless water a pale gray. You count heartbeats, forcing stillness. Every muscle fiber trembles, but outwardly you must be a statue. This ritual wasn't just about toughness. It was symbolic rebirth. Emerging from the water meant shedding the lethargy and impurities of the night, entering the day physically shocked and spiritually scrubbed raw. Scholars debate if the water's temperature was always glacial or sometimes merely cool. but judging by your numb toes, today's batch was hauled straight from a mountain glacier. Time stretches like frozen taffy. Was it 2 minutes? 10? Your body starts playing tricks, a deceptive flush of warmth, followed by deeper, shuddering waves of cold. Just when you think your spine might snap from tension, you rise. Water cascades off you, hitting the wooden floor with loud splats that echo in the austere room. You're shaking violently now, skin puckered and bluish. Grabbing a rough linen towel, you scrub fiercely, trying to ignite friction's pathetic imitation of heat. The towel rasps against your skin like sandpaper. No plush robes wait, just a dry, equally thin underlayer. Dressing feels like fumbling with numb fingers. The cold lingers, a core-deep chill that no amount of rubbing dispels. You're awake, yes, but it's the alertness of a cornered animal. As you shuffle toward your living quarters, a darkly humorous thought surfaces. Modern wellness influencers, touting ice baths for biohacking and reducing inflammation, are just cosplaying your misery. At least they get fluffy towels and podcasts. You get existential dread and the knowledge that breakfast is hours away and likely involves cold rice. The ritual's cruelty had purpose, though. In an era without antibiotics, the shock might have jolted sluggish immune systems. More importantly, it proved mastery over the body's most primal urge, seeking comfort. Surviving this daily assault meant you could face anything: a rival's blade, a lord's displeasure, or the sheer boredom of ritual. Your teeth are still chattering as you enter the dim room where your swords rest. The cold water's work is done. Now, something sharper demands your attention. The chill from that glacial bath still vibrates deep in your bones as you meal on the familiar, unforgiving tatami before the katana cake, the sword rack. Your breath steams faintly in the pre-dawn gloom, the only light coming from a single sputtering Enden lamp casting long dancing shadows. This isn't just putting away toys. It's a sacred choreography performed in near silence. Your fingers, stiff and cold, find the silk cords binding your daisho, the paired-long katana and shorter wakizashi, to your belt. Untying them requires deliberate, reverent movements. The mainstream fact: daily sword inspection and cleaning wasn't optional. It was as vital as breathing, a core tenet of Bushido, ensuring your primary instrument of life and death was flawless. Historians still argue whether the profound taboo against others touching a samurai's blade extended even to trusted family members during cleaning, or if strict protocols allowed for assistance under supervision. You lift the katana first, the weight settling into your palms like a promise and a threat. The lacquered scabbard feels cool and smooth. Drawing the blade isn't a swift movie flick. It's a slow, controlled glide, inch by gleaming inch, revealing the steel in the lamplight. You hold it horizontally, eyes scanning the length, the curve, the temper line whispering like frozen flame along the edge. Is that a speck? A hint of moisture from the night air. Your heart skips. A dull or dirty blade could mean disgrace or death. You take a small piece of soft, untreated washi paper. No modern solvents here. Instead, you reach for the uchiko ball, a little pouch filled with finely ground stone powder. Tapping it gently against the blade sends a soft puff of gray dust onto the steel. This abrasive powder lifts oil, fingerprints, and microscopic corrosion. Then comes the meticulous wiping, long, straight strokes from the base towards the razor edge, always moving away from your body, using fresh paper each time. Turn the blade, repeat. It's hypnotic, almost meditative, the soft shy of paper on steel the only sound. One quirky tidbit: some samurai were fanatical about not breathing directly onto the blade while cleaning, believing their breath's moisture could invite rust. Imagine the contortions, holding your breath or turning your face awkwardly while polishing. Others use specialized oils, applied with a feather or tiny cloth pad after the powder, creating a protective, fragrant barrier. The scent of cloves or camellia blooms would mingle with the lamp oil and cold stone smell, an oddly peaceful perfume for such a lethal object. You apply the oil sparingly, watching it bead on the pristine surface before vanishing with a final wipe, leaving only a faint sheen and the ghost of its scent. Every motion is ritualized, ingrained muscle memory. Inspect, powder, wipe, oil, wipe, inspect again. The wakizashi gets the same reverent treatment. Resheathing the blade requires equal care, ensuring the habaki seats perfectly. As you place the cleaned swords back on the rack, a wave of exhaustion tries to creep in. Remember that glacial bath? The shock is fading, replaced by a deep, bone-weary ache. Your stomach growls, a traitorous sound in the quiet. Breakfast feels like a distant dream, but there's no rest yet. This maintenance ritual served multiple purposes beyond practicality. It was a daily confrontation with mortality, holding the instrument of your potential death. It forced focus, banishing distraction in the fragile quiet before dawn. It was a physical meditation on duty and preparedness. A dull sword reflected a dull spirit. Scholars debate whether the meticulous care stemmed purely from practical necessity in humid Japan, or if it was imbued with deeper Shinto concepts of purity surrounding weapons. Either way, your fingers now smell of oil and stone dust, and the blades gleam with cold perfection. Suddenly, a low, resonant boom echoes through the thin walls, vibrating in your chest. It's the temple bell from a nearby monastery, tolling the hour. The sound shatters the intimate silence of your weapon care. Its deep, mournful note is a reminder. The rigid schedule marches on, indifferent to your fatigue or the lingering cold in your toes. Time for the next layer of discomfort, one that involves mirrors, stiff fabric, and the subtle tyranny of posture. You take one last look at your swords, their presence a silent command, then push yourself up from the tatami. Your knees protest, stiff from kneeling. The lamp's flame flickers as you move past it, casting your elongated shadow like a weary giant on the wall. The darkness outside the window is finally softening, but your morning is far from over. It's time to get dressed for battle. Against wrinkles and slouching, that temple bell's deep resonance still vibrates in your sternum as you shuffle into your dressing room, a space dominated by a large, slightly warped bronze mirror reflecting the flickering Andon lamp. Forget a quick hoodie and jeans. What awaits is a wardrobe designed by a sadist with a passion for starch. Piled neatly are layers of fabric that promise less comfort than a suit of nails. The mainstream fact: samurai formal dress kamishimo consisted of the kimono base layer, the stiff, winged katajinu vest, and the wide pleated trousers called hakama. Historians still argue whether the elaborate pleating of the hakama served purely ceremonial symbolism or had a practical function in sword draw or disguise of leg movement. One thing certain, your freedom of movement is about to be ceremoniously murdered. You start with the underlayer, a simple silk or hemp robe. It feels cool against your skin, still holding the memory of the icy bath. Then comes the main kimono, heavier silk, dyed in somber clan colors or subdued patterns. You wrap it left over right. Tying the obi sash around your waist is the first real battle. It's not a belt. It's a structural engineering project. You pull it tight, too tight. It's like being hugged by a determined python. You exhale forcefully, trying to find space for your lungs. Comfortable isn't in the samurai dictionary. Correct is the only entry. A quirky tidbit: some samurai, paranoid about assassins or needing hidden remedies, sewed tiny secret pockets inside their sleeves or obi folds, holding anything from emergency medicine to love poems. Imagine trying to subtly scratch an itch only to pull out a heartfelt haiku instead. Next, the hakama. These aren't pants, they're architecture. Stiff, wide-legged, and pleated with geometric precision, they require a specific contortionist act to step into. You hoist them up, the stiff fabric scraping against your kimono. The real struggle is securing them. Multiple ties snake around your waist and hips, each needing a precise knot. You wrestle with cords, fingers fumbling on the stubborn, starched fabric. The goal? To make the hakama hang perfectly straight, the pleats sharp enough to slice tofu, while simultaneously anchoring them so securely that not even an earthquake could dislodge them. It's less stressing, more fortifying your lower half. As you cinch the final tie, you feel the pressure points digging into your hips. Forget slouching. You're now structurally reinforced against it. Finally, the karajino, the stiff, shoulder-winged vest that completes the ensemble. Made of heavily starched hemp or lacquered paper cord fabric, it feels like slipping on a small, ornate bookshelf. The rigid wings extend outwards, forcing your shoulders back and down. It pins your posture like a butterfly collector's specimen. You stand before the bronze mirror. The figure staring back is imposing, rigid, swathed in layers of fabric that crackle faintly with every micro movement. But the mirror isn't just for vanity. It's your drill sergeant. You check the alignment. Is the collar perfectly straight? Are the hakama pleats hanging flawlessly, not twisted? Is the obi knot immaculate? You adjust a fraction, the stiff fabric resisting. This ritual wasn't just about looking the part, it was becoming the part. The restrictive clothing was armor against informality, a constant physical reminder of your station and the rigid codes governing your every action. Scholars debate how strictly this full regalia was worn daily outside of castle attendance. Perhaps lower-ranking samurai wore simplified versions for routine mornings. But today, judging by the vice-like grip around your ribs, you're going full formal. The mirror reflects discipline incarnate, even if the person inside feels like a trussed-up turkey yearning for sweatpants. A servant enters silently, bowing. They don't speak, but their presence is a timer. They carry a small, plain wooden box. You know what's inside. With hands that feel clumsy within the stiff sleeves, you open it. Nestled on dark velvet are your small personal items. A folding fan, your signature seal, perhaps a tiny writing kit. You slip them into the folds of your obi or sleeves, the fan for practicality, the seal for any unexpected bureaucratic demands. The servant bows again and retreats. You take a final look in the mirror. The transformation is complete. The groggy, shivering individual who crawled out of the futon is gone, buried under layers of silk, starch, and symbolism. You feel taller, broader, constrained, and undeniably official. The clothes are a cage, but they're your cage, the uniform of your existence. The faint, pre-dawn light is now a persistent gray at the windows. The lamp's glow seems weaker. It's time to leave this room. You're stiff, wide hakama legs, whispering like dried leaves against each other as you turn. Your spine feels fused straight. Breathing is optional. Next stop, not breakfast. Never breakfast this early. It's time to make your brain hurt in the gloom. The whisper of starched hakama against your legs is the only sound as you navigate the shadowed corridors toward your study nook. The rigid wings of the katajinu feel like a wooden yoke, forcing your shoulders into unnatural stillness. You slide open another shoshi screen, entering a small, austere room that smells faintly of old paper, ink, and the lingering chill of night. A single, low writing desk sits near a paper-covered window, the pre-dawn light outside a miserly gray sludge offering almost no illumination. Your sole light source is another sputtering Andon lamp, its feeble flame casting more dancing shadows than useful radiance. Forget cozy reading nooks or ergonomic chairs. Your designated spot is a thin, unforgiving zabatine cushion placed directly on the tatami. You kneel, the stiff hakama bunching awkwardly, the katajinu's wings bumping the wall behind you. Breathing deeply is still a luxury your tight obi denies you. The mainstream fact: pre-dawn academic study was non-negotiable for samurai. Mastery of Confucian classics, military strategy, poetry, calligraphy, and even history was demanded alongside martial prowess. Historians still argue whether this rigorous intellectual regimen was truly accessible to lower-ranking samurai or primarily the domain of the elite. You fumble within your voluminous sleeve, retrieving a small, cold suzuri and a stick of hard ink. Pouring a tiny amount of water from a ceramic flask into the inkstone's well feels like surgery with numb fingers. You begin grinding the ink stick in slow, deliberate circles. Scrape, swirl, dot, dot, scrape, dot, dot. Swirl. The rhythmic sound is hypnotic, the only counterpoint to the faint hiss of the lamp. The process takes minutes, forcing a slow, focused start. Your eyes strain against the gloom, struggling to see the water darken. Was it thick enough? Too thin? In this light, it's guesswork, one quirky, slightly alarming tidbit. Some scholars, desperate to read ancient, faded texts in poor light, might have used primitive magnifying lenses called mekigan. But rumor whispered that poorly made ones, held too close for too long under flickering lamps, could concentrate light enough to set scrolls on fire or induce bizarre visual distortions. Imagine trying to decipher Sun Tzu while battling hallucinations caused by your own reading aid. Finally, ink deemed sufficiently black, you unroll a section of a bamboo scroll or bound book. The characters swim in the murky light. Leaning forward slightly, constrained by your stiff attire, you bring the text perilously close to the lamp. The heat from the tiny flame prickles your face while your back remains cold. You squint, tracing complex kanji with a fingertip that feels thick and clumsy. The subject tonight? Perhaps it's the Analects of Confucius, emphasizing loyalty and duty, concepts feeling particularly sharp after your icy wake-up call. Or maybe it's the Book of Five Rings, by Miyamoto Musashi, Dissecting Strategy. Either way, the words demand intense concentration, a battle fought not with steel, but with a weary mind still half frozen. Your stomach growls again, louder this time, a rude interruption to Master Kong's wisdom. You ignore it. Discipline. Focus. A faint tremor runs through your hand, holding the brush. Fatigue, cold, or hunger. Probably all three. Scholars debate the exact text considered essential. Some domains emphasize Chinese classics. Others focused on practical Japanese military chronicles or domain-specific codes. You dip a worn brush into the homemade ink. The first strokes onto cheap washi paper are hesitant, blobby. Your knuckles ache from the cold and the awkward angle. Calligraphy wasn't just writing, it was a martial art of the mind and hand, demanding fluid grace under pressure. Right now, achieving anything beyond a child's scrawl feels like a victory. The ink bleeds slightly on the absorbent paper. You focus on your breathing, trying to steady your hand, to make the brush an extension of your will, not a trembling betrayer. Each character is a miniature landscape, the sharp start, the flowing body, the decisive end. Doing this in near darkness, stiff and cold, feels like painting a masterpiece while wearing oven mitts on a rocking boat. Awry thought surfaces, modern students complaining about bad Wi-Fi or uncomfortable library chairs have no idea. You'd kill for a bad chair. At least it's a chair. Minutes stretch into an hour. The gray light outside deepens marginally, but the lamp remains your primary sun. Your knees throb dully from kneeling. Your back aches from the forced posture. Your eyes feel gritty and strained. The cold has seeped up from the tatami through the thin cushion, settling deep into your bones once more. You recall that brutal bath, the shock now a distant echo replaced by this persistent, draining chill. Yet, you persist. This mental conditioning was crucial. A samurai needed to strategize, negotiate, compose formal letters, understand laws, and appreciate art. Being a mere brute was a path to irrelevance or an early grave. The ability to focus amidst profound physical discomfort, to wrestle meaning from dim light and complex texts, was as vital as swordplay. A servant might glide past the doorway, a silent shadow refilling your water flask, or simply observing your diligence. No praise is offered. Diligence is expected. As you reach the end of a passage, your brush hovering, the tolling of the temple bell echoes again, deeper and more resonant now in the slightly brighter dawn. It signals not a break, but a transition. Time to trade the brush's subtle torment for a far more literal kind of pain. You cap the inkstone, your cramped fingers protesting. The scroll is re-rolled. The lamp flickers valiantly. Rising from the zabuton is an exercise in controlled agony. Your joints creak like an unoiled gate. The study's quiet mental strain is over. Next comes stillness of a different, more excruciating kind. The temple bell's final note fades, leaving a silence that feels heavier than your layered ropes. You shuffle away from the dim study, your movements stiff, like a poorly oiled automaton dressed for war. Your destination isn't the kitchen, nor a comfortable chair. Instead, you enter the zashiki, the formal reception room. Here, the tatami mats seem harder, the air colder, the atmosphere thick with unspoken expectation. Centered on the floor is a single, pristine zabuton cushion, looking deceptively innocent. This is your meditation perch, a mainstream fact. Sustain nailing meditation in the seiza position, back straight, knees together, feet tucked under you, sitting directly on your heels, was a cornerstone of samurai mental training, cultivating focus, endurance, and emotional control. Historians still argue whether this practice was directly imported from Zen Buddhism or evolved from older Shinto and indigenous warrior traditions of stillness. You approach the cushion, the wide legs of your hakama whispering like conspirators. Lowering yourself into seiza is an exercise in controlled agony. First, you kneel, the tatami's unforgiving weave pressing into your kneecaps. Then comes the slow, deliberate settling back onto your heels. A sharp intake of breath escapes you. The pressure is immediate and brutal. Ankles scream. Shin bones protest. Tendons stretch taut like overtuned guitar strings. Within seconds, a familiar fiery ache blooms in your feet, quickly turning them into blocks of numb wood. Your spine, already held rigid by the katajinu, feels fused. This isn't relaxation, it's suspended animation designed to break you. One quirky, darkly practical tidbit. Some samurai theorize this position deliberately restricted blood flow to the legs, creating a low-level agony that sharpened focus and prevented drowsiness. Think of it as medieval biohacking, using pain as a cognitive enhancer. Effective, perhaps, enjoyable. Absolutely not. You place your hands gently in your lap, left palm resting on right, thumbs lightly touching, the cosmic mudra. Your gaze lowers to a point on the tatami about 3 feet ahead. The goal isn't mystical enlightenment, but muga, no self. Emptying the mind of distracting thoughts, the gnawing hunger, the deep-seated chill, the screaming protest from your lower limbs, the itch on your nose you absolutely cannot scratch. You focus on your breath in dot, 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 dot. The tight obi makes full breaths impossible. Out, dot, 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 slow. controlle. The air feels thin, insufficient. A bead of sweat trickles down your temple, despite the room's chill. It's not exertion. It's the sheer concentration of not moving, not reacting. Every nerve ending screams for relief. Minutes crawl by like glaciers. The initial sharp pain in your feet settles into a deep, throbbing numbness. Your ankles feel crushed. Your knees are hot coals. The rigid katajinu digs into your shoulders. The silence amplifies the roaring discomfort in your body. A stray thought flickers. Why? Why endure this? Discipline answers, cold and sharp as your katana's edge. A warrior must master his body's weaknesses. He must stand unmoved in the face of pain, boredom, or fear. This torture was the gem for your willpower. If you could sit perfectly still here, in this private agony, you could stand impassive before a raging lord, endure a wound on the battlefield, or face death without flinching. Scholars debate whether samurai meditation focused more on breath awareness or visualization techniques, but right now, your entire universe is the fire in your legs and the desperate struggle to keep your spine rod straight. A fly buzzes lazily past your ear. It feels like a personal insult. The urge to swat it is a physical tremor you must suppress. Your jaw clenches. The numbness in your feet is giving way to a terrifying pins and needles sensation, like 1,000 angry ants marching under your skin. You want to scream, to leap up, to stamp your lifeless feet. but you don't. You breathe. In. The tatami pattern blurs before your fixed gaze. Out. You imagine your pain as a physical thing, a dark mass you observe dispassionately, like a surgeon studying a tumor. It doesn't belong to you. You merely witness it. This detachment is the goal, the superpower they're trying to forge. A wry, sleep-deprived thought surfaces. Modern office workers complain about sitting too long in chairs, with padding. You trade your ancestral sword for 5 minutes and an ergonomic office chair right now. The pins and needles intensify into searing jolts. Your calves cramp violently. A gasp threatens to escape. You clamp it down, turning it into a slow, controlled exhale through your nose. Your knuckles are white where your hands press together in your lap. The rigidity of your clothing becomes a bizarre asset. It physically prevents slouching or fidgeting. You are encased, trapped in your own discipline. You recall the meticulous sword cleaning, the quiet focus required. This is its brutal cousin, internal maintenance, scrubbing the mind with pure, unadulterated discomfort. The pre-dawn gray has finally surrendered to a pale, watery morning light filtering through the paper screens. It does nothing to warm you or ease your suffering. Just when you feel the numbness creeping up your shins might actually be permanent, a sound slices through the silence, not the temple bell, but the soft, clear chime of a small handheld bell, shaken just outside the doorway. It's the signal. Meditation is over. Relief floods you, a physical wave so potent it almost knocks you sideways. But you don't collapse. Discipline, again. Uncurling your body is a slow, excruciating process. First, shifting your weight forward slightly off your screaming heels. Then, the agonizing unbending of knees that protest with audible cracks. The blood rushes back into your feet like molten lead. You bite the inside of your cheek hard, tasting copper, to stop a groan. Standing feels like a miracle and a punishment simultaneously. Your legs tremble violently beneath the stiff hakama. You take a shaky step. The pins and needles are now a roaring inferno. You shuffle, a parody of your usual stride, towards the doorway. The servant with the bell bows, their face impassive. No comment on your hobbling gait. The stillness of meditation is broken, replaced by the shaky, painful aftermath. Your body feels like it's been reassembled incorrectly, and now, finally, you get to eat? Not quite. Duty calls elsewhere. Time to greet the dead. Shuffling on legs that feel like overstretched rubber bands, you navigate away from the meditation room's scene of quiet torture. The pins and needles firestorm in your feet hasn't subsided. Each step sends fresh jolts up your spine. You're not heading toward the tantalizing smell of food. Instead, you turn toward a dimly lit alcove where a small, ornate lacquered cabinet rests on a stand. The Butsudan, the family Buddhist altar. Forget coffee and toast. Your first sustenance of the day is spiritual. The mainstream fact: daily offerings and prayers to ancestors were non-negotiable, blending Shinto reverence for familial spirits with Buddhist rituals, ensuring ancestral protection and maintaining cosmic order for the living. Historians still argue whether this practice was driven more by genuine belief in ancestral oversight or by rigid social expectation and clan tradition. The air here is thick with a faint, sweet, woody scent of old incense. You kneel before the altar, another agonizing descent onto protesting joints, the rigid katajinu wings bumping the alcove frame. Inside the cabinet's glass doors, you glimpse small memorial tablets inscribed with ancestors' posthumous names, perhaps a faded portrait scroll. A tiny bronze bowl, a bowl for water, a dish for rice, and a stick of incense rest on the altar's surface. Your numb fingers fumble with a flint striker. Click dash, click dot dot. The spark finally catches a twist of dried hemp. You touch it to the incense stick. A thin, fragrant curl of smoke begins to rise, coiling like a sleepy serpent in the still air. The smell, sandalwood or loose wood, is calming, a stark contrast to the lingering aroma of lamp oil and your own discomfort. One quirky, deeply personal tidbit. Some Smurry offered specific foods they knew a particular ancestor favored. A slice of pickled plum, a tiny dried fish, even a thimbleful of sock. Imagine whispering, "Good morning, Grandfather Jiro. Here's that awful salty squid you loved," while your own stomach growls like a disgruntled badger. You lift a small ceramic water pitcher. The water inside is fresh, drawn at dawn. With trembling hands, you pour a careful offering into the tiny bronze cup. Not a drop can spill. Carelessness dishonors the dead. Next comes the rice. Using special chopsticks reserved solely for the altar, you transfer a small, perfect mound of cold, cooked rice from a covered dish to the offering bowl. It's pristine white, each grain distinct, a symbol of purity and life sustenance. The irony isn't lost. You offer nourishment you desperately crave to those beyond physical need. You place the chopsticks neatly across the rim of the bowl. The ritual is precise, silent, demanding total focus despite the body's protests. Now, the bell. You pick up the small bronze rin, its handle cool in your palm. A single clear ting breaks the silence, sharp and pure. It's a call, a signal to the unseen. You fold your hands, bow your head slightly, and close your eyes. This is the whispering part. No rote prayers shouted here. It's intimate, personal. You report the dawn, affirm your continued duty, seek guidance, perhaps apologize for yesterday's shortcomings. A stray moment of anger, a lapse in focus during sword practice. You feel the weight of their gaze, generations of stern, watchful faces judging your worthiness. Endured the cold bath, you think? Cleaned the blades, sat through the agony. Please let breakfast happen soon. Scholars debate whether these daily interactions were seen as literal communication or merely symbolic remembrance, reinforcing family identity and obligation. Right now, with your knees screaming and stomach hollow, it feels unnervingly real. A draft stirs the incense smoke, making it dance. The silence after your mental whispers feels deep, expectant. You remain bowed for several long breaths, the scent filling your nostrils. The cold tatami seeping through the thin hakama fabric onto your bruised knees. This ritual wasn't just piety. It was psychological anchoring. Ancestors were constant witnesses, a living audience for your conduct. Disgrace wasn't just personal, it tarnished generations. It instilled a profound sense of continuity and accountability far deeper than any lord's command. A wry thought pierces the solemnity. Modern folks check social media first thing. You check in with your dead great-uncle, who's got more pressure. Finally, you raise your head. The offering is made, the connection acknowledged. You ring the bell once more, a softer ting signaling the close. Retrieving the water cup and rice bowl requires the same reverent care. The rice, now spiritually consumed, cannot be casually eaten by the living. It would be later offered to birds or returned to the earth. The water might be poured onto clean soil. The incense stick burns down to a fragile gray column, collapsing silently into ash. You blow out the tiny ember, the ritual is complete. The physical world rushes back in, the persistent ache in your legs, the tightness of the obi, the gnawing emptiness in your belly, now amplified by the sight and smell of uneaten rice. The pale morning light filtering into the alcove offers no warmth. As you painfully push yourself upright, your stiff hakama rustling, you cast one last glance at the closed butsudan. The silent ancestors seem satisfied for now. Your duty to the dead is discharged. Your duty to your own growling stomach remains frustratingly unfulfilled, but there's no direct path to the kitchen. Another obligation looms, one involving open air, sharp steel, and muscles still trembling from mewing. You shuffle away from the alcove, the scent of incense clinging to your robes, a ghostly reminder that you're never truly alone. The cold rice in the offering bowl mocks you silently. Time to trade whispers for wind, stillness for the swing of a blade. Maybe, just maybe, physical exertion will distract you from the void within. The lingering ghost of sandalwood incense clings to your stiff robes as you shuffle towards the training ground, a world away from the hushed intensity of the altar. The morning air, now fully dawn but still bitingly cold, hits your face like a splash of reality. It's a relief, almost, after the close, sacred air of the butsudan, but it does nothing for your numb feet or hollow stomach. You emerge into a simple, swept earth courtyard, perhaps shaded by a single gnarled pine. The sky is a pale, washed-out blue. Your breath plumes visibly. The mainstream fact: pre-breakfast weapons training was sacrosanct, focusing on fundamentals, repetitive drills with wooden swords or spears to ingrain perfect form, speed, and power into muscle memory. Historians still argue whether women of samurai families regularly participated in such rigorous dawn practices or focused on defensive weapons like the naginata at other times. A servant stands silently near the edge of the yard, holding your bakken. It's not the sleek, balanced beauty of your real katana. It's solid oak, heavy and unforgiving, designed to build strength and punish error. Your fingers, stiff and cold, wrap around the rough lacquered hilt. The weight feels alien, clumsy after the delicate rituals of dressing and prayer. You take your stance, feet shoulder width apart, left foot forward, knees slightly bent. Sigen no Kame, the basic middle posture. The cold earth bites through your thin tabi socks. The rigid katajinu restricts your shoulder movement, a constant reminder of formality even in violence. One quirky, slightly gross tidbit: some masters insisted students never wipe sweat during practice, believing it contained vital energy that shouldn't be discarded. Sweat would sting your eyes, drip onto the dirt, and by the end, you'd be coated in a gritty paste of dust and exertion. Imagine the aroma by mid-morning. You raise the bakken, the movement feeling jerky, unnatural. The first overhead cut is a slow, laborious arc. Your muscles, cold and stiff from hours of stillness and kneeling, protest loudly. The bakken whistles dully through the cold air, landing with a disappointing thwack on an imaginary opponent's head. It feels weak, inadequate. A growl of frustration rumbles in your chest. This is where the discipline of meditation and stillness is supposed to pay off, focus translating to power. Right now, it feels like trying to sprint after running a marathon backwards. You're set. Feet position, grip, breathe, in. The servant watches, impassive, out. Another cut, thwack, slightly better, less shoulder, more hips. Bushido demanded perfection in the mundane. 1,000 perfect cuts made one perfect warrior. Or so the theory went. Your empty stomach clenches painfully, a sharp counterpoint to the exertion. Drill follows brutal drill. Side cuts, thrusts, blocking sequences. Each movement is broken down, repeated dozens of times. Your shoulders burn, your forearms ache. The heavy oak bakken feels like it's gaining weight with each swing. Sweat prickles your scalp under the constrained hair, trickles down your spine despite the cold, soaking into the layers of silk and stiffened hemp. The servant doesn't offer water. Stopping is failure. The rhythmic thwack, thwack, thwack of wood slicing air becomes the morning's metronome. You recall the silent focus of sword cleaning, the mental strain of pre-dawn study. This is their physical counterpart, brutal, repetitive, demanding absolute presence. A stray thought, modern gym goers counting reps to upbeat music have it easy. Your soundtrack is your own ragged breath and the accusing silence of the watching servant. Scholars debate the exact ratio of solo drills versus paired sparring in the average samurai's morning. Solo fundamentals likely dominated before breakfast. Fatigue makes your form sloppy. A downward cut drifts slightly off center. The bakken twists awkwardly in your grip on the follow-through, wrenching your wrists. A sharp gasp escapes you. Pain flares. The servant's eyes flicker, noting the lapse. No reprimand is spoken, but the judgment hangs in the cold air. Shame burns hotter than the muscle ache. Perfection, always. You were set, jaw clenched, forcing your trembling muscles back into position. The next cut is sharp, clean, powerful. The thwack rings out, satisfyingly crisp, but the effort leaves you lightheaded. The world tilts slightly. Lack of food, the lingering chill, the brutal exertion, they conspire against you. You plant the tip of the bakken in the dirt for a second, leaning on it, head bowed, fighting the wave of dizziness. The rigid ketaginu feels like a shell threatening to crack. This wasn't just training the body. It was stress testing the spirit under duress. Could you maintain technique when exhausted, cold, and starving? Could you push through the body's desperate protests? Survival on the battlefield depended on it. The sharp clap of wooden blocks echoes suddenly from the veranda. It's the signal. Practice is over. Not because you've achieved perfection, but because the relentless schedule demands it. Relief wars with frustration. You lower the bakken, your arms trembling violently, sweat stings your eyes. You instinctively raise a sleeve to wipe it, then freeze, remembering the superstition. You lower your arm, blinking furiously, letting the salty droplets fall. The servant steps forward, bowing silently, and takes the heavy wooden sword. Your hands feel raw, your shoulders leaden. The cold air hits your sweat-dampened back, raising goosebumps beneath the layers. You're simultaneously overheated and chilled to the bone, exhausted but wired. The courtyard seems to spin slowly. That growling void in your stomach is now a roaring beast. Surely food is next. You turn your stiff hakama whispering, legs wobbling slightly, and shuffle back towards the shadowed interior of the house. The promise of breakfast feels like a mirage shimmering just out of reach. Instead, the scent of pine resin and cold earth fades, replaced once more by the familiar, unwelcome aroma of lamp oil and ink. Time to sit down again. But this time, the stillness comes with a different, more insidious challenge. The phantom weight of the Bakken still drags at your arms as you stumble back inside, sweat chilling instantly on your skin beneath the stiff layers. The tantalizing aroma of something cooking, maybe rice, maybe miso, drifts faintly down the corridor. Hope, fragile and desperate, flickers in your hollow chest. Finally, food. You turn eagerly towards the source of the scent, only to be intercepted by a serva. Subtle bow and a silent gesture towards the zashiki, the formal room where you'd earlier endured meditation's agony. Confusion wars with crushing disappointment, not the kitchen. Never the kitchen directly. The mainstream fact? The first meal was a ritualized affair, served in solitude or under silent observation, emphasizing austerity, mindfulness, and impeccable etiquette. Historians still argue whether the extreme minimalism of this meal reflected Zen Buddhist influence, practical resource management, or pure disciplinary theater. You enter the room. The single zabuton cushion awaits, looking less like a seat and more like a torture device for your already screaming knees and feet. Kneeling down is a fresh wave of agony. Before you, a small, low, lacquered tray rests on the tatami. Its contents are underwhelming. A small bowl of perfectly white rice, maybe half a cup at most. A tiny dish holding a single intensely pickled plum, its wrinkled purple skin looking like a shrunken head. A smaller dish with a mere thimbleful of miso soup, steamless and lukewarm. Beside it, a pair of plain wooden chopsticks, perfectly aligned. That's it. No grilled fish, no vegetables, no seconds. After hours of cold, exertion, and mental strain, this is the reward. Your stomach lets out a guttural growl that echoes in the silent room. One quirky, slightly tragic tidbit. The black lacquerware often used wasn't just elegant. Its dark interior made the already meager portions look slightly larger. A psychological trick played by empty bowls on empty stomachs. Imagine the chef's dark chuckle as they chose the dish. A servant enters silently, kneeling respectfully to the side, eyes lowered but undeniably present. This isn't companionship. It's surveillance. Your every move is monitored. The meal begins not with eating, but with the formal greeting. Itadakimasu. I humbly receive. You whisper it, the words feeling dry in your parched mouth. Picking up the chopsticks is an ordeal. Your hands, raw from the bakken grip and stiff from cold, fumble. You must hold them correctly. One stationary, one moving with precise control, never crossing, never pointing. Any clumsiness is noted. You reach for the rice bowl first. Lifting it requires both hands, cradling it respectfully close to your chest. The porcelain feels cool. You take a single, tiny mouthful. The rice is bland, lukewarm, sticking slightly. Chewing feels laborious. You must eat silently, lips closed, showing no sign of hunger or haste. Each grain must be consumed. Dropping even one would be a mark of shame. Scholars debate whether the specific order of eating was strictly enforced universally or varied by region or school. The pickled plum comes next. You lift it whole with your chopsticks, a test of dexterity with trembling fingers. Biting into it is a shock. Intense saltiness floods your mouth, puckering your cheeks, followed by a sour tang that makes your eyes water slightly. It's less food, more a wake-up call for your taste buds in a desperate attempt to make the rice seem more substantial. You take the tiniest sip of miso soup. It's thin, barely flavored, offering no warmth. The ritual feels interminable. You want to shovel the rice into your mouth, swallow the plum whole, gulp the soup, but etiquette is a cage tighter than your obi. Every tiny bite is deliberate, slow, performed under the silent, watchful eye of the servant. The rigid katajinu forces your posture ramrod straight, making the simple act of bringing the bowl to your mouth an awkward, constrained motion. The emptiness in your stomach is a yawning chasm the meager meal does nothing to fill. If anything, the tiny bites increase the hunger, teasing your system without satisfying it. A darkly humorous thought. Modern diet influencers peddling mindful eating and tiny portions are channeling Edo-period's morai torment. At least they get Instagram likes. You get existential dread and a servant judging your chopstick technique. You finish the last grain of rice, the final drop of soup, the last sour scrap of plum. Placing the chopsticks neatly back on their rest feels like laying down weapons after a skirmish you lost. The ritual closing phrase, Gochi Sasama Deshida, thank you for the feast. The words taste like ash. The servant gives a shallow bow, rises smoothly, and removes the tray with silent efficiency. The room feels emptier, colder. The minuscule meal has done little except highlight the vastness of your hunger and fatigue. You're still cold, still aching, still trembling slightly from exertion and low blood sugar. The brief illusion of sustenance evaporates, leaving you more hollow than before. Scholars debate whether this ascetic breakfast was genuinely believed to sharpen the mind for the coming day's duties, or was simply another tool for instilling discipline through denial. Judging by the lightheadedness making the tatami pattern swim slightly, it's effective at the latter. The servant pauses at the doorway, not looking back. Their silent presence is the timer. Break time is over. The brief, unsatisfying interlude of food is done. The gnawing hunger remains, a constant companion as you painfully push yourself up. Your legs scream, your back groans. The scent of the vanished meal still teases the air. The morning's relentless schedule offers no respite. Time to return to the scene of your earlier mental struggle, your body depleted, your mind foggy, and your stomach staging a noisy rebellion. Back to the gloom. Back to the scrolls. The samurai's morning, where even breakfast is a battle you don't win. The phantom taste of sour plums still puckers your mouth as you hobble back toward the study nook. The meager breakfast did nothing but awaken your stomach's furious rebellion. It growls like a caged bear with every stiff-legged step. The corridor walls seem to sway slightly. Exhaustion and low blood sugar blur the edges of your vision. You slide open the shoshi to your dim study cubby, greeted by the same sputtering Andon lamp, the same unforgiving zabuton, and the same scroll left half unrolled from your pre-dawn battle with Confucius. The smell of ink and cold paper feels like a punch. Again, the mainstream fact. Post-breakfast academic sessions reinforce Banbu Riado, drilling complex Chinese classics or military strategy into weary minds. Historians still argue whether samurai genuinely internalized these texts or performed rote memorization as a status symbol. Collapsing back into the kneeling position sends fresh jolts of agony through your ankles and shins. The cold tatami seeps through your thin hakama, a cruel counterpoint to the lingering sweat from weapons practice. You fumble for the inkstone, fingers clumsy and raw. Grinding the inkstick feels like moving mountains, scrape, swirl. The rhythm is sluggish, syncopated by your stomach's angry rumbles. You unroll the scroll. The intricate kanji characters swim before your tired eyes, morphing into indecipherable black spiders dancing in the lamplight. It's Sun Tzu today. Know the enemy and know yourself. The enemy right now is your own body screaming for sleep and sustenance. Yourself? You're a hollow, aching shell draped in starched torture garments. One quirky, desperate tidbit. Some sleep-deprived scholars chewed on bitter nikawa used in bookbinding, believing its astringent taste could ward off drowsiness. Imagine battling kanji with a mouthful of dried horsehoof gelatin. Scholarship meets medieval energy drink, minus the energy. You dip the brush. Your first stroke on the cheap washi paper is a pathetic blob. The characters demand crisp lines and balanced form, but your hand trembles. A combination of Bakken fatigue, hunger tremors, and the persistent cold. You try to focus, and the rigid Kataginu collar digs into your neck. Out, your numb feet throb with returning circulation, 1,000 hot needles stabbing upward. The text blurs again. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war. A bitter laugh bubbles in your throat. You haven't won anything today except the privilege of continued suffering. You trade Sun Tzu's entire wisdom for a nap and a bowl of noodles. Modern students complaining about 8A muchers. They have padded chairs, coffee shops, and the option to wear pajamas. You're dressed like a ceremonial chess piece, kneeling on concrete disguised as straw, trying to decipher ancient warfare tactics on an empty stomach while your spine slowly fuses. The study isn't passive reading. You're expected to copy passages, the brushwork, a physical manifestation of mental discipline, but focus is shattered. A bead of sweat drips from your temple onto the paper, making the ink bloom like a tiny gray flower of failure. You blot it hastily with your sleeve, leaving a smudge that looks suspiciously like a frowning face. Scholars debate whether calligraphy practice was truly valued for artistic merit or merely as another endurance test. Right now, it feels like punishment for existing. You force another line of characters. They slant drunkenly, strokes uneven, spacing chaotic. It looks like it was written by a concussed badger. The servant who refills your water flask pauses, their eyes flicking to your dismal handiwork. No comment, just the silent, crushing weight of expectation. Perfection, always. Even when your world is reduced to pain, fog, and the relentless gurgling of your own digestive system. A fly buzzes past your ear, landing brazenly on the edge of your inkstone. It cleans its legs, utterly indifferent to your struggle. You stare at it, mesmerized by its simple, uncomplicated existence. It isn't worrying about posture or ancestor approval, or whether its downward brushstrokes adequately convey the essence of strategic advantage. Envy, sharp and unexpected, pierces your exhaustion. You consider swatting it, but even that tiny rebellion feels like too much effort. The lamp flame gutters, casting long, leaping shadows that make the kanji seem to ride on the page. The cold deepens as the morning wears on, the feeble sunlight through the paper screen offering no warmth. You recall the icy bath, a distant, almost nostalgic memory of simpler pain. Hunger morphs from a growl into a deep, gnawing ache, a constant distraction humming beneath the mental fog. A wry thought surfaces. Samurai were masters of delayed gratification, but right now, you'd gratify yourself with a stale rice ball and a heartbeat. You push on, dredging up reserves of willpower you didn't know you had. Brushstroke by painful brushstroke, character by crooked character. The act becomes mechanical, a slow slog through intellectual mud. The text's meaning evaporates. It's just shapes to replicate, an endurance contest between your wavering focus and the relentless march of time, marked by the gradual shortening of the lamp's wick. The andon's oil is burning low, its light growing dimmer, casting the struggling kanji into deeper shadow. It feels symbolic. Your mental fuel is nearly spent. Just as your head begins to nod, your chin dipping dangerously toward your ink-smeared chest, a sharp, resonant thwack echoes from outside, not the temple bell, but the distinct sound of a bamboo practice arrow hitting a straw target. The sound jolts you awake like a slap. Your brush skids, leaving a long, ugly smear across the page. Study time is over. Relief wars with a strange sense of incompleteness. You haven't conquered Sun Tzu. You've merely survived him. You cap the inkstone with numb fingers, the failed calligraphy a crumpled, ink-blotched testament to your morning's attrition. Rolling the scroll feels like sealing a coffin on your intellectual aspirations. Rising from the Zabuton is a symphony of pops and groans from protesting joints. The lamp sputters one last time, threatening to drown the room in darkness. The fly, sensing the shift, buzzes away towards brighter prospects. You shuffle towards the doorway, stiff robes rustling, the taste of ink and hunger bitter in your mouth. The mental fog hasn't lifted. It's merely shifted. Time to trade the brush's subtle torment for the bow's demanding pull, where trembling hands and an empty stomach pose a far more visible and potentially humiliating risk. The samurai's morning, where even thinking is a physical ordeal. The sharp thwack of the arrow jolts you upright, snapping the fog of exhaustion like a brittle twig. Ink-stained fingers, trembling from hunger and the lingering ache of the bakken, fumble as you cap the stone. The failed calligraphy scroll feels like a lead weight as you re-roll it. Stumbling to your feet is less rising, more controlled collapse, joints popping, stiff hakama rustling like dried leaves. The dim study scent of ink and cold paper fades as you shuffle towards the courtyard, replaced by the crisp tang of pine resin and the faint earthy smell of straw targets. The mainstream fact: archery wasn't just martial skill. It was a deeply spiritual practice, merging Zen focus, Shinto ritual, and lethal precision. Historians still argue whether battlefield archery remained practically relevant in the Edo-period's era of firearms, or became purely ceremonial and meditative. Emerging into the pale morning light feels like stepping into an ice bath. Sweat chills instantly on your skin beneath the starched layers. The training ground is simple: a swept earth yard, a single gnarled pine offering scant shade, and a large, round straw target mounted on a stand, perhaps 20 paces away. A servant waits silently, holding your long, asymmetrical bow, taller than you are, laminated bamboo and wood, unstrung. Its raw power feels dormant, intimidating. One quirky, superstitious tidbit: samurai archers considered a sneeze while drawing the bow a terrible omen, potentially dooming the shot and inviting disaster. Imagine the pressure, battling allergies while trying to achieve spiritual enlightenment via arrow. Stringing the bow is your first trial. It's not a simple pull. It's a full-body contortion against immense tension. You plant one end against your sandaled foot, grip the upper limb, and bend your spine backwards, leveraging your entire body weight against the bow's resistance. The stiff Ketajinu wings dig into your shoulders, restricting the movement. Your muscles, already trembling from hunger and the Balkan, scream in protest. The bamboo groans, creak, creak. Finally, with a grunt you barely suppress, the loop of the hemp string slips over the upper tip. You're panting, sweat beading anew on your forehead. Just stringing the weapon feels like a minor battle won. You take your stance, feet planted firmly apart, body perpendicular to the target. Knocking the arrow requires focus your shaky hands struggle to muster. The feather fletching brushes your cheek as you draw the string, the smooth bamboo of the arrow shaft resting on your left glove. Now, the draw. You raise the bow, arms forming a triangle. Pulling the string back isn't just arm strength, it's core, back, shoulders, everything you've already punished today. The bow bends, the tension building exponentially. Half drawn, your muscles quiver violently. The rigid katajinu feels like a straitjacket. Your empty stomach clenches, sending a wave of lightheadedness. Focus. You anchor the string near your right ear, the arrow tip pointing slightly downward. This is the moment of truth. No BI, the full draw and expansion. You push the bow forward with your left hand while pulling the string further back with your right, expanding your chest against the suffocating obi. Breath suspended, sight picture aligned, or trying to. The target wavers. The feather tickles your cheek. The servant watches, impassive. Henner, the release. It's not a conscious decision to let go. It's a surrender to the tension, a moment where perfect form allows the shot to happen through you. Your trembling right hand opens, the string snaps forward. Twang! The arrow leaps from the bow and wobbles drunkenly through the air like a disoriented dragonfly. It misses the target entirely, thudding harmlessly into the earthen bank behind it. Shame burns your cheeks hotter than exertion. The silence is deafening. Perfection demanded, mediocrity delivered. Scholars debate whether the famous Zen mind sought in archery was achievable amidst the daily grind of hunger, cold, and exhaustion, or if it remained an idealized goal for most. Judging by your wavering arrow, enlightenment was taking the morning off. You knock another arrow. The process repeats. Stance, knock, draw, expansion. Fight the tremors. Fight the lightheadedness. Fight the rigid clothing. Twang. This arrow hits the outer edge of the target, sticking at a pathetic angle. Not a kill. Barely a hit. Frustration wars with fatigue. This ritual wasn't just about hitting a mark. It was about achieving perfect harmony of body, mind, and spirit under duress. Each shot was a meditation in motion, demanding absolute stillness within the immense physical effort. Right now, your spirit feels fractured, your body a collection of screaming protests. The servant remains a silent statue of judgment. A wry thought pierces the frustration. Modern folks get stressed if their Wi-Fi lags during a video call. Try achieving spiritual calm while dressed like a ceremonial bookshelf, starving and trying to shoot straight with spaghetti arms. Perspective. Shot after shot. Some arrows fly true, burying themselves satisfyingly near the target's center. Others veer wildly, victims of your fatigue or a sudden cramp. Each miss feels like a personal failing amplified by the silent observer. Sweat stings your eyes. You dare not blink excessively, let alone wipe it away. The repetitive strain on your back and shoulders is brutal. A deep, grinding ache joining the chorus of discomfort from your knees, feet, and stomach. You recall the stillness of meditation. This is its violent, dynamic opposite, yet demanding the same iron control. The pale sun climbs higher, offering little warmth. The smell of damp earth and pine sap mixes with the scent of your own exertion. Your hands, gripping the bow and string, feel raw, blisters threatening. The servant doesn't flinch, doesn't offer water, doesn't acknowledge a good shot. Stoicism is the only currency here. Finally, the wooden clappers sound. Practice ends not with triumph, but with weary relief. You unstring the bow, another struggle against tension, your spent muscles barely cooperating. The servant steps forward, bowing silently, and takes the unstrung yumi and your remaining arrows. Your shoulders slump momentarily before the rigid katajinu forces them back. Tremors run through your arms and legs. You're drenched in cold sweat, shaking, lightheaded, starving, and now dotted with fresh aches from archery's demands. The brief glimpses of accuracy feel hollow against the backdrop of failures. The target, bristling with a few decent hits amidst many misses, mocks you. The spiritual harmony of Kyudo feels galaxies away. As you turn to shuffle back inside, the clean lines of the courtyard, the scent of pine, the open sky, they all feel like fleeting moments of freedom before re-entering the cage of ritual. The servant's silent presence trails you, a reminder that even in failure, duty continues. Next stop isn't rest or food. It's time to navigate the intricate, exhausting minefield of social hierarchy. The physical trials might be done, but the mental ones are just beginning. Your growling stomach provides the soundtrack. The raw ache in your bow-drawing shoulder pulses with every stiff step as you shuffle away from the archery yard, the servant's silent shadow trailing behind. The courtyard's open air, pine scent, and weak sunlight fade as you re-enter the dim, labyrinthine corridors of the samurai residence. But you're not bound for rest or sustenance. Instead, you turn toward the heart of the complex, the domain of living superiors, not straw targets. Here, the battle isn't fought with blades or bows, but with bows of a different kind. The deep, precise, excruciatingly slow bends of social deference. The mainstream fact? Samurai existed within a rigid, intricate hierarchy where meticulously observed rituals of service, gift-giving, and verbal deference governed every interaction. Historians still argue whether this system fostered genuine loyalty or merely enforced control through performative subservience. A senior retainer, Lord Kato's stern-faced steward, stands near a polished cedar doorway. His mere presence radiates unspoken authority. Your approach is a choreography of humility, back bent just so, eyes lowered, gait slow to a respectful glide. Stopping precisely 3 paces away, you sink into a deep, sustained bow, your stiff hakama rustling like dried reeds. The angle is crucial. Too shallow implies disrespect. Too deep suggests groveling. You hold the position, your neck muscles straining against the rigid collar, your empty stomach pressing painfully against the tight obi. Time stretches. The tatami pattern blurs before your downcast eyes. One quirky, anxiety-inducing tidbit. Some high-ranking lords employed etiquette spies to report any subtle lapses, a poorly timed blink, a slightly uneven bow depth, an almost imperceptible sigh. Imagine navigating a minefield where a twitch could mean demotion. The steward acknowledges you with a barely perceptible grunt. Permission to rise. Straightening is agony for your back and knees. He gestures wordlessly toward a small, pristine side garden visible through an open shoshi. A bamboo rake leans against a stone lantern. Your task, clear fallen pine needles. It's mind-numbing, humble labor, warrior transformed into groundskeeper. But this is the social keystone. Serving superiors, even in trivial tasks, reinforce the hierarchy cement. You know painfully on the wooden veranda edge, your protesting joints groaning, and take the rake. The bamboo handle is cool, smooth. Each stroke across the gravel must be deliberate, meditative, perfect. Raking lines must be straight, patterns harmonious. No hurried, hungry swipes. This is performance, not productivity. Arai thought, modern interns fetching coffee have it easy. Your coffee run involves achieving Zen perfection with dead pine needles while being judged by a statue with eyes. You work with aching slowness. The rake's tines scrape rhythmically on the gravel. Scritch, scritch. The steward watches from the shadowed doorway, a silent gargoyle of judgment. Every movement feels magnified. Is your posture correct? Is the rake angle pleasing? Is your breathing too loud? The rigid ketajinu makes bending awkward, forcing you into stiff, robotic motions. Hunger gnaws, a constant counterpoint to the monotonous task. You recall the archery target, hitting that felt simpler than pleasing this man's unspoken standards. Scholars debate whether such menial tasks for mid-high-ranking samurai were daily realities or symbolic gestures reserved for specific occasions. Today, judging by the steward's unblinking gaze, it's deadly serious. Suddenly, a soft chime sounds within the residence. The steward stiffens. A moment later, a junior servant scurries out, bearing a small, exquisite lacquered box. They stop before you, bowing deeply. The steward gestures. It's a test wrapped in ritual. You must receive this hypothetical gift for your lord with flawless etiquette. Setting the rake down silently, you wipe non-existent dust from your hands onto your hakama, a symbolic purification. You accept the box with both hands, cradling it as if it holds the emperor's crown jewels. The weight is negligible, the responsibility crushing. You bow deeply over it, murmuring formal thanks, your voice raspy from disuse and thirst. Holding the box, you turn with glacial slowness, presenting it to the steward as if offering a sacred relic. Your movements are stiff, hampered by fatigue and the constricting robes, each step a potential tripwire into disgrace. The steward accepts the box with a curt nod. No praise. The junior servant melts away. The steward places the box carefully on a veranda ledge, then flicks his eyes back to the half-raked garden. The message is clear: resume your humble labor. Your shoulders sag infinitesimally before snapping back under the Katajinu's tyranny. Picking up the rake feels like lifting the bakken again. Scritch, the pine needles seem endless. The silence is thick, broken only by the rake, your own heartbeat, and the occasional treacherous growl from your stomach. You feel like an actor in an exhausting, wordless play where the audience holds your future hostage. A darkly humorous realization. Modern corporate team-building exercises are picnics compared to this. At least trust falls involve falling, not holding perfectly still while starving in formal wear. The steward finally makes a small, dismissive gesture with his fan. Your audience is over. Relief is a physical wave, but you must exit correctly. Another deep, sustained bow held for precisely 3 breaths. Rising, you back away 3 paces, eyes respectfully lowered before turning. Only then can you shuffle down the corridor, the servant reappearing silently behind you. The tension eases slightly, but the humiliation lingers. Performing menial tasks under silent scrutiny wasn't just busy work. It was a constant, grinding reminder of your place, reinforcing dependence and stifling dissent. It stripped away warrior pride, leaving only obedient function. Your stiff robes feel heavier, the morning's accumulated exhaustion settling deeper into your bones. The faint, tantalizing smell of cooking, real food perhaps, drifts again from somewhere deep within the residence. Hope flickers, frail and desperate. Could this be the moment? You follow the servant, your path veering away from the austere study or training ground, heading deeper into the dwelling's heart. The scent grows stronger, unmistakable now. Steamed rice, maybe a hint of fish. Your stomach clenches, not in protest, but in agonized anticipation. After hours of ritual, pain, and social combat, the promise of actual sustenance feels like a mirage shimmering into reality. The servant pauses before a closed Fusuma sliding door. Could it be? Is the kitchen finally on the other side? Or is it just another antechamber to another layer of obligation? The servant's hand reaches for the door handle. You hold your breath. The servant slides the Fusuma door aside. The scent hits you like a physical force. Steamed rice, savory miso, maybe grilled fish, rich, warm, and real. Not the ghost breakfast of pickled plum austerity. Your stomach lurches violently, a starving beast scenting prey. But stepping into the room isn't entering a kitchen. It's entering another meticulously staged arena. Low tables are set with covered lacquer bowls, steam curling faintly from beneath lids. Several other samurai, similar layered and rigid, kneel silently on zabuton cushions. The atmosphere is thick with unspoken tension, not camaraderie. The mainstream fact. The main meal was a highly ritualized affair, eaten in communal silence under strict observation, reinforcing hierarchy and etiquette even during sustenance. Historians still argue whether portion sizes subtly reflected rank differences within the room. Your designated cushion awaits. Lowering yourself into Seiza is a fresh descent into Nihao, the accumulated agony of hours screaming anew. The servant silently indicates your place, not near the head, not near the foot, somewhere in the limbo of mid-rank. A senior retainer sits at the head position, radiating quiet authority. You fold your hands in your lap, eyes downcast. Hunger is a roaring furnace, but movement is forbidden until the signal. One quirky, stomach-torturing rule. Some etiquette codes demanded chewing each mouthful exactly 100 times before swallowing, turning eating into a slow-motion endurance test. Imagine counting chews while your body screams for calories. A soft chime sounds. Lids are lifted simultaneously with a faint clink. The sight is almost overwhelming. A bowl of fluffy white rice, a generous serving of miso soup with visible tofu and seaweed, grilled mackerel gleaming with oil, a small dish of pickles, even steamed greens. After the morning's deprivations, it looks like a king's feast. But desire wars instantly with dread. The chopsticks feel heavier than your bakken. You must lift the rice bowl first, cradling it correctly in your left hand, the soup bowl in your right, switching only with precise, silent motions. Taking the first bite requires excruciating control. The rice is hot, fragrant, perfect. Chewing slowly, lips sealed, showing no sign of ravenous hunger, is agony. The fish is tender, salty, real food. Every instinct screams to devour it. The silence is oppressive, broken only by the infinitesimal clink of porcelain, the soft scrape of chopsticks, the almost silent chewing of 24 starving men forcing themselves to eat like clockwork automatons. Eyes remain lowered. Conversation is unthinkable. The senior retainer eats with glacial, impeccable slowness, setting the torturous pace. You match it, bite by tiny bite, each one a battle against your body's desperation. The rigid ketachinu and tight obi make swallowing feel constricted. A bead of sweat trickles down your temple, not from heat, but from the sheer effort of restraint. Scholars debate whether the enforced silence stemmed from Zen mindfulness or simply prevented inconvenient conversations and enforced focus on etiquette. You reach for the soup. Lifting the bowl requires both hands. Bringing it to your lips, you sip silently. It's hot, savory, warming your chilled core for the first time all morning. The comfort is almost painful. But as you lower the bowl, a tremor runs through your exhausted hand. The rim clinks audibly against the table edge. The sound is deafening in the silence. Every head doesn't turn. That would be rude. But you feel the collective awareness sharpen, the weight of judgment pressing down. Your cheeks burn. Perfection shattered by a tired hand and a clumsy bowl. The senior retainer pauses infinitesimally, chopsticks hovering over his fish. No reprimand comes, only the crushing weight of his silent disapproval. The meal continues, but the taste of shame is now mixed with the fish. A wry thought, modern foodies photograph meals. You're being judged on your ability to eat one silently while dressed in a posture cage. You force yourself to continue movements even more cautious, more rigid. The delicious food turns to ash in your mouth. The pickles are intensely sour, a jarring counterpoint. The greens require careful manipulation with chopsticks. Dropping one would be catastrophic. You chew methodically, counting internally not to 100, but simply to maintain the snail's pace. The act of eating, something that should be pure relief, becomes another exhausting performance, another potential for disgrace. The servant refills your teacup silently. The green tea is bitter, bracing, a welcome distraction from the taste of humiliation. You sip it slowly, the warmth spreading but failing to melt the ice of embarrassment. Finally, the The senior retainer places his chopsticks neatly across his empty rice bowl. Like puppets on strings, everyone else stops instantly. Bowls are still half full for some, including yours. Hunger claws, but continuing is unthinkable. You place your own chopsticks down with meticulous care, hands trembling only slightly. Lids are replaced with the same synchronized precision as their removal. The silence deepens. The ritual closing phrase, Gochu Sama Deshita. It's whispered in near unison, a low murmur of gratitude that feels utterly disconnected from the reality of the meal. Relief wars with frustration. You're no longer starving, but you're far from satisfied. The delicious food now a source of stress rather than solace. The physical needs were met, barely, but the psychological toll feels heavier. The senior retainer rises smoothly. Everyone follows suit, the rustle of stiff silk and starched hemp loud in the quiet room. Rising from seiza is a fresh wave of agony for battered knees and ankles. You bow deeply towards the head of the room, then towards your fellow diners in a complex choreography of departing deference. Backing out of the room, eyes lowered, feels like retreating from a battlefield where you scored no victory. The servant guides you away. The scent of the meal lingers, a bittersweet reminder. The sustenance fuels your body, but the gnawing void of the morning, the cold, the pain, the failures, isn't filled. It's merely overlaid with a new layer of social anxiety and the dull ache of muscles pushed beyond their limits. Your formal robes feel like lead. The servant's pace doesn't slacken. The schedule offers no digestion time. One final formidable ritual awaits, the presentation to the Lord himself. The morning's crucible isn't done. It's saving its hottest fire for last. The lingering scent of grilled fish and shame follows you down increasingly ornate corridors. The servant's pace is unhurried, yet inexorable, leading you towards the residence's innermost sanctum. The air thickens with the smell of rare cedar polish and the faint, cloying sweetness of high-grade incense. The tatami feels denser, the paper screens whiter, the silence deeper, a silence that hums with latent power. Guards in full, intimidating armor stand like lacquered statues at intervals, their eyes fixed on some distant martial horizon, utterly ignoring your passage. The mainstream fact. The daily audience with one's lord or his senior steward was the pinnacle of the morning ritual, a performative reaffirmation of loyalty and readiness where any flaw could spell disaster. Historians still argue whether these audiences were genuinely daily occurrences for all retainers or reserved for specific ranks or days, concentrated during castle duty rotations. You pause before a massive, intricately carved cedar door, the entrance to the audience chamber. Your servant melts away, replaced by a senior chamberlain, his face a mask of glacial impassivity. This is the final gauntlet. Your exhaustion, your hunger, your aching knees, the tremor in your hands, all must be locked away behind a facade of flawless composure. One quirky, nerve-shredding detail. Lords were known to test attentiveness by deliberately dropping a small, silent object to see if a retainer's eyes flickered or a posture shifted. Imagine maintaining statue-like stillness while a priceless jade metsky plummets towards irreparable shattering. The chamberlain gives a minuscule nod. Time to enter the dragon's den. The door slides open soundlessly. The chamber beyond is vast, hushed, and dominated by a raised dais. Seated upon it, swathed in layers of impossibly fine silk brocade, is Lord Cato. He seems less a man, more a monument carved from aloof authority. The distance between the threshold and the dais feels like a mile of exposed ground. The mainstream protocol hits you, the Sekame approach. You don't walk. You advance in a series of deep, crawling bows, punctuated by moments of kneeling stillness, on your hands and knees. In the stiff, winged katachinu and wide hakama, it's a cruel, contortionist nightmare. Each movement forward is agony, the starched fabric scraping, the rigid wings catching, your bruised knees and crushed ankles screaming anew with every shuffle. You reach the designated point several paces from the dais. Freezing in the deep bow, forehead nearly touching the pristine tatami you hold. Silence. Your heartbeat thunders in your ears. Sweat beads on your neck beneath the stiff collar. The scent of cedar polish and Lord Cato's subtle, expensive sandalwood incense fills your nostrils. Scholars debate whether this humiliating approach originated from battlefield submission rituals or purely as a display of absolute feudal dominance. Rise. The Lord's voice is quiet, dry, carrying effortlessly in the cavernous silence. It's not a suggestion. It's a command that vibrates in your bones. You push yourself up with agonizing slowness, fighting the tremors in your arms and the desperate urge to gasp for air compressed by the obi. Settling back onto your heels in seiza, you keep your spine ramrod straight, eyes fixed on the tatami, a respectful distance before the dais. Lifting your gaze to meet the Lord's is forbidden unless explicitly ordered. You are an object presented for inspection. Report your readiness, the formulaic command. Your voice, when it comes, must be clear, steady, betraying none of the morning's ordeal or the tremor you feel inside. My lord, you begin, the words practiced, precise. This unworthy servant reports himself ready for duty. The blades are sharp, the spirit is vigilant, the body is prepared to serve. The lie tastes bitter. Your body feels like shattered porcelain held together by willpower and starch. A flicker of movement catches your peripheral vision. Lord Cato shifts slightly. Your focus narrows to laser intensity. Don't blink. Don't breathe too loud. Don't sway. A wry thought pierces the tension. Modern job interviews involve handshakes and PowerPoints. Yours involves crawling across a room while dressed like a ceremonial hawk and declaring readiness after 3 hours of sleep and a fish you couldn't finish. The silence stretches. It's an interrogation without questions. Lord Cato's gaze feels physical, sweeping over you, dissecting your posture, the hang of your hakama, the set of your shoulders beneath the katachinu. Is there a speck of dust on your sleeve? A hair out of place from the bow practice? The chamberlain stands nearby, a silent scribe noting something. Every second is an eternity of scrutiny. You recall every stumble, the wavering arrow, the blotched calligraphy, the clinking soup bowl. Could any of it be known? Paranoia whispers. Discipline holds you rigid. This was the ultimate test. Surviving the physical trials meant nothing if you cracked under the weight of the Lord's silent, judging presence. It cemented the hierarchy not through force, but through the sheer, suffocating pressure of expectation and the ever-present threat of disgrace. Your empty stomach churns, no longer with hunger, but with raw anxiety. Finally, a soft rustle of silk. Your diligence is noted. The words are devoid of warmth. a simple administrative acknowledgement. It's not praise, it's the absence of censure. Relief, sharp and dizzying, floods you, but you dare not show it. A deeper bow is your only response, dismissed. The single word is your salvation. The reverse ritual begins. Backing away on your knees, then more crawling bows, retreating towards the distant doorway, all while maintaining perfect form. It's harder than the approach. Fatigue threatens to make your movements clumsy. The vast expanse of tatami seems endless. The Lord's gaze, you feel certain, remains fixed on your retreating back. Every shuffle is excruciating. Finally, you reach the threshold. One last deep bow from the kneeling position at the doorway. Only then, as the massive cedar door slides shut behind you with a soft thump, do you allow yourself the tiniest fraction of slackening in your posture, still kneeling in the antechamber. The chamberlain is already gone. The guards remain impassive. You're alone. The audience is over. You passed. The morning's crucible is complete. A shudder runs through you, part exhaustion, part residual terror, part overwhelming relief. The rigid shell of the warrior remains, but inside you feel utterly spent, hollowed out by the relentless demands of ritual, pain, and scrutiny. The servant reappears silently, a phantom ready to guide you to the final blessed act of this interminable morning. Release. The cedar door's soft thump seals away the audience chamber's suffocating gravity. Kneeling alone in the antechamber's sudden silence, the rigid shell of your posture finally, infinitesimally softens. A tremor runs through you, not of fear now, but of sheer spent adrenaline. Every muscle sings a chorus of exhaustion, shoulders shredded by the bow, knees pulsing from hours of seiza, spine fused straight by the katajinu. The servant reappears, a silent ghost offering a hand to rise. You take it, your own grip unsteady, the simple contact a shock after the morning's isolation. Stumbling upright is less a movement, more a controlled collapse against the corridor wall. The cool plaster feels divine against your sweat-dampened temple. "It is done, master," the servant murmurs, the first words spoken directly to you in hours. They carry the weight of absolution. The walk back to your quarters is a blur of polished wood and shifting shadows. Guards remain impassive statues. The servant guides you not to the austere study or training ground, but to the quiet sanctuary of your personal rooms. Here, finally, the relentless performance ends. Another servant waits, holding a simple cotton yukata. The mainstream fact: shedding formal kamishimo marked the symbolic end of public duty, a return to private self, though even relaxation held traces of ritual. Historians still argue whether this transition offered genuine respite or merely shifted expectations to familial roles. Right now, you crave only oblivion. Fingers fumble with the ties of the katajinu. The stiff wings release their grip with a faint crackle, falling away like shed carapace. Next, the hakama cords. Each loosened knot feels like a shackle breaking. The wide trousers pool around your ankles, freeing your tortured legs. The tight obe is the final fortress. Unwinding its length is a slow, almost painful uncoiling. You gasp as your ribs expand fully for the first time since dawn, drawing deep, unconstricted breaths of air, smelling faintly of tatami and your own exhaustion. Stripped to the simple underrobe, the physical relief is profound. The layers of silk and starch lie discarded on the floor like the shed skin of some ceremonial beast. One quirky, tender detail. Servants might offer a warmed, damp cloth infused with faint citrus or chrysanthemum scent to wipe away the grime of ritual. A small, silent mercy for the victorious survivor. The yukata is blissfully soft, lightweight cotton against skin sensitized by starch and sweat. No mirrors judge you here. You sink onto the thin futon, not to sleep yet, but simply to exist without demand. A low table appears, bearing a simple, uncovered meal. A full bowl of rice, lukewarm miso soup, pickles, no watchful eyes. You eat slowly, mechanically, chopsticks moving without ceremony. The food is fuel, not performance. The silence is yours alone, broken only by the distant, rhythmic scrape of a gardener's rake, a sound now soothing, not scrutinized. You think of the cold bathist's shock, the meditation's agony, the Lord's paralyzing gaze. Each ordeal survived. The scholarly debate over whether samurai experience pride or mere numbness after such mornings feels irrelevant. You feel hollowed out, scoured clean by discipline, trembling on the edge of collapse. A final servant enters, bowing deeply. They carry not a weapon or scroll, but a small wooden tray holding a handleless cup of steaming green tea. The gesture is simple, human. You cradle the cup, the heat seeping into your chilled, raw hands. The first sip is bitter, cleansing, washing away the phantom taste of pickled plum and shame. Outside, the pale morning sun has climbed higher, casting warm rectangles of light through the paper screens. The rigid schedule's grip has loosened. The rest of the day holds duties, estate management, correspondence, perhaps teaching his son the sword's basics, but they unfold in softer rhythms. For now, this fragile piece is enough. The servant withdraws, sliding the shoshi closed with a soft sigh, leaving you utterly, blessedly alone. The warrior's mourning is done. Only the trembling aftermath remains, a testament to endurance etched into every aching bone and frayed nerve. You set down the empty cup, its warmth lingering on your palms. The futon beckons, a promise of stillness deeper than meditation. Outside, the wind rustles bamboo. Somewhere, a temple bell chimes the hour, not a command, but a gentle reminder that time, for now, belongs to you. The relentless grip of dawn has softened to the gentler light of mid-morning. You've navigated the icy shock of purification, the razor's edge focus of blade care, the bone-deep stillness of meditation, the gnawing void of hunger endured under watchful eyes, the precise terror of the Lord's gaze. Every ritual, every demand, every moment of exquisite discomfort was a thread woven into the unyielding fabric of the samurais' existence. You felt the starch bite into your skin, the tatami's unforgiving weave imprint itself on your knees, the weight of generations press upon your bowed shoulders. You witnessed the dawn not as a gentle awakening, but as a gauntlet run in darkness, each step measured, each breath controlled. It was a world where comfort was the enemy, discipline the only armor, and perfection a relentless, silent master. But here, now, in the quiet aftermath, the tension eases. The rigid postures dissolve. The starch layers lie discarded. The watchful eyes have turned away. You've crossed the threshold. The battles fought in those hushed corridors, on cold earth, beneath flickering lamplight, they're over. You're safe. The stillness surrounding you isn't the charged silence of expectation, but the deep, forgiving quiet of respite. Let the scent of cedar and old paper fade, replaced by the familiar comfort of your own space. Let the phantom pressures melt away like morning mist under a strengthening sun. Feel the solid, steady surface beneath you, the gentle weight of soft covers, the rhythmic whisper of your own breath, deep and slow, and finally, blessedly, your own. The summarized world recedes, its sharp edges softened by distance, its demands quieted to a faint echo. You're here now, anchored in the calm present moment. The challenges of that distant dawn belong to another realm, another time. They shaped a legend, forged an ideal, but they are not your burden to carry any longer. Let them drift away on a sigh, dissolving like incense smoke into stillness. There is only this profound peace, this gentle heaviness in your limbs, this quiet sanctuary. Allow the weariness to settle, not as a burden, but as a well-earned mantle of rest. Feel the quiet hum of the world outside your window, a soothing lullaby. The light is soft, the air is still, the day holds no demands. Drift now, effortlessly carried on the gentle current of utter tranquility, deeper, softer, quieter ... into the welcoming embrace of restful oblivion, where nothing is required, nothing but the sweet, silent descent into perfect DREAN less us.